Hello everyone to another episode of Bible Illustrated Hands. Today's question comes from Eleazar. He asked whether non-Christians can be saved, that is, good souls who haven't recognized Christ or His church. Thank you for your question, Elio. The problem here is primarily what is salvation? How do you envision salvation? Do you envision it as, a lot of clouds, a flowery meadow? How do you see it? Thing is, salvation isn't that. Our salvation is by Christ into Christ. And if that is too much Jesus for you, then no, you cannot be saved. Because there is no other salvation. It is like trying to flee a burning building, but fire is all you have ever known. It is simply impossible. Let me give you an example. Let us say that you're a pious Muslim man. But when I say Muslim, I mean, an ordinary Muslim, not a suicide bomber or ISIS freak. And, you're pious, you do your best, and you die. And suddenly you realize that Jesus isn't a prophet. You realize that Muhammad isn't a prophet. You realize that God is Trinity. You realize that Allah has a son. And not only a son, he has a spirit too. And that complicates things. Will such person accept Christ? That is the $1 million question. And that is why Christianity is so important. In Christianity, it is so important to actually be a Christian. Elder Thaddeus of Vitovnica, he's a famous Serbian elder, he said that when non-Christians die, an angel reveals to them the entirety of the gospel, and they're free to choose to accept it or reject it. And I can definitely see why is that so, because without that gospel, there's no place such people can go. You won't see it as a salvation; you'll see it as hell, and that is the biggest problem. Also, if Christianity doesn't come to a nation, how, for example, you can say that people were good. Okay, fine, they can be, but Christianity optimizes goodness. For example, in ancient Rome, fathers could leave their children out in the field to die from the elements. Aztecs performed brutal human sacrifices. Brutal, absolutely brutal. And I'll say something extremely controversial, but I think that conquistadors were the best thing that happened to Aztecs. It is personally my preference, but I'll take mumbling in Latin over a wafer I'll take mumbling in Latin over a wafer over human sacrifice any day. That's, I think that is simply better. So simultaneously, yes, non-Christians can be saved because they may accept Christ or recognize in Christ every good thing that they have seen in their life. Again, no, they may choose to remain with their gods, with their prophets, even if all those gods and prophets are fool's gold. That is why I like the story about Emperor Trajan being saved by the prayers of Saint Gregory, because it is important for people to actually be saved by the church because they're saved into the church. Trajan wasn't saved on his special merits, but by the eternal intercession of the church, in whom all the saved will eventually end up. And of course, sometimes church has its failures, but then again, that is because we live in a in a fallen world. But the church, the true bride of Christ, when it shines in all its splendor and beauty in the age to come, then we will see who is actually in the church and who never was, despite formally being baptized and being its part. Bye.